To me, when it comes to chronic diseases like cancer, the first step for a lot of people, I feel like, is to change the diet and to go to either a keto carnivore diet or plant based. And depending on how much digging you do online, you're going to find success stories in both those realms.
Right.
How do you feel about both of those extremes when it comes to building a diet to either prevent or treat cancer?
Yeah. The other thing is, we have a clinic, online clinic called the New Biology Clinic, and we have a bunch of doctors there, and we have members, and they have all kinds of things. And we have been working for the last year with an oncologist who's like a reformed oncologist, who all she does is prolonged fasts with people. And she has been having remarkable success. We've also seen it with keto diets. We've seen some with deuterium depleted water, which I can explain a little bit. So, you know, interestingly, it's an interesting question. Why do both just eating meat and fat and eating just vegan diet both work? And, this person, Natasha Campbell McBride, made an interesting comment. A vegan diet is not a diet, it's a cleanse. And so if you're sick because you're toxic and you do either a water only cleanse, or I've seen it with grape cure, I've seen people recover with just eating grapes, amazingly enough. The Mayo Clinic was started as a milk fast diet. That's why they put it in rural Minnesota. The first 20 years that people come who are sick, they put them on a month of only milk. And that only changed when they made laws saying they had to pasteurize the milk, then it doesn't work anymore. Um, so there's a lot of these cleaning diets, and I would say even a carnivore diet is a cleansing diet. It's actually easy to digest. It gets you away from eating carbohydrates, which arguably have a problem. And a lot of people recover. Now, I don't think you need to do that the rest of your life. And I think the normal diet is more like Nourishing Traditions, where you basically eat everything, but it's based on quality. Everything is the best quality. So if you're going to eat grains, you eat like einkorn berries that you grind into flour and make into sourdough bread yourself. Or the best vegetables, and some of them fermented, and bone broths, and the best fats, etc. That to me is a normal diet. And these other ways are something is really wrong, and I have to keep it very simple. Just meat, just fat, just plants, just milk, just grapes, only water. And they all seem to work because they help you get rid of the poison.
Whether it be carnivore or keto, which carnivore could be a subcategory under keto,
Yeah.
if you ask 10 people on the street why that would work when it comes to cancer, the answer you'd probably get is it lowers the blood sugar. In your book, you talk about how it does, but that mechanism in and of itself doesn't bring it down enough. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, even Seifried, who's like the guru of the ketogenic diet for cancer, wrote Metabolic Treatment or something of Cancer. Um, it's clear that the lowering of the blood sugar with eating a no carbohydrate or ketogenic diet is not enough to supposedly arrest the growth of the cells. Now, that's the whole question, and we talked about whether that's really what's happening, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But what does seem to be the case, which is where a lot of people, I think, are going with this, is if it's in the cytoplasm, and the cytoplasm is this structured, coherent gel phase water, it's pretty easy to see. It'd be nice to have good water. So what does good water mean? Well, let's look at the opposite side. Not good water is water that has what's called deuterium in it. Now, this gets a little complicated because I also think a little bit differently about the mechanism, but the standard explanation is water is H2O. I don't actually believe that anymore, but let's say it's true. Hydrogen has one electron, one proton, no neutrons. Uh, Deuterium is a so-called isotope of hydrogen, which means it's a variation, which means it has an electron, it has a proton. That means it's hydrogen, or in the hydrogen family. But instead of 0 neutrons, it has 1 neutron. And so that means it's twice as heavy as hydrogen. But it has all the same chemical properties, so you can form D2O or DHO. And it turns out that most people have 150 parts per million of deuterium water in their bodies. Now, it turns out that deuterium water is very toxic to living things. Like if you water a plant with pure deuterium water, you'll kill it. If you have your dog only drink heavy water, you'll kill it. So it somehow interferes with the normal functioning of water, which is everything, where the charge comes from. So because of that, I ended up thinking, what if I took the deuterium out of the water? Would that be healthier water? And people might be getting sick because they have too much deuterium. And let's see if we get rid of the deuterium by having them drink deuterium depleted water, then they get better. And sure enough, they did. And as I pointed out, there's studies on prostate cancer and breast cancer, everything the same treatment. One group, you give deuterium depleted water plus whatever other therapy, and they live like 2.5 times as long. So there's something to it. Now, they say that the deuterium people say that the deuterium interferes with the nano pumps in the mitochondria and keeps you from making ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. Well, for me, there are no nano pumps, and ATP is not the energy currency, so that's not how it works. But if you think about it, and even if there's no atoms, which is what I think, there can't be neutrons and electrons and protons. Those are hypothetical models. But yet, deuterium-rich water is heavier than deuterium-depleted water. Like you could hold it, and it's heavier. There's something different about it. And drinking heavy water eventually isn't good for you because it changes the way you form your gels. So instead of this perfect mesh, which holds on to potassium, which makes the charge, now you got this wonky mesh, right? That's all distorted because we know that heavy water can't form healthy, crystalline, coherent, structured water. That changes the cytoplasm, changes the charge, and everything goes wrong from there. And I think that's how it works. At the end of the day, we both say it works because it changes the water. They have a different mechanism than I do. But if you're going to do one thing and you want to not change anything, if you drink deuterium depleted water, it will help you. Now, getting back to your question, it turns out that fats, which are big collections of hydrogen and oxygen, you can't make deuterium doesn't fit into a fat molecule. So fats are deuterium depleted themselves, whereas carbohydrates are simpler, so they have a lot of deuterium. So if you put people on a ketogenic diet, you get rid of the deuterium in the food and they lower their deuterium. And that's why, like this place called drinklightwater.com, which is the main deuterium depletion website, I think, in the world, they say drink deuterium depleted water, go on a ketogenic diet. You will have a dramatically different outcome for diabetes and Parkinson's and neurodegenerative disease and cancer. And I have seen that in my own practice.
Okay, to recap there, when it comes to the vegan world, that could be looked at like a cleanse.
It's a fat.
And maybe that's why it's working.
Yeah.
When we go to the keto carnivore side, low deuterium. And then you also mentioned the water we can add in as well to bring the deuterium down even lower.
Right.
Can we bring the deuterium down too low? Have you seen that?
I've never seen that, but there is ways of you can measure it. And the official protocol for doing deuterium depletion is you can do it with a spit test. They sell you a spit test, you test yourself, and everybody with cancer is over 145 parts per million. The water in the world is about 145. But here's where it gets interesting. Deuterium water, let's see if I get this right, freezes at a lower freezing point, a higher freezing point than so-called light water or H2O water. So if you go to a place where there's a glacier with ice and then there's water running underneath it, that the glacier will be high in deuterium because it froze first, and the water underneath will be deuterium depleted. And that's how they got started, because they tested it's like 130. And so these people like the Hunzas and all these long-lived people who are drinking deuterium depleted water and their plants were growing in deuterium depleted water, they sort of live forever, right? And they didn't get cancer, and they attribute it to all kinds of things. But one of the factors might have been they were naturally deuterium depleted. And you can do that yourself if you put like a jar of water, any water, in a freezer. At a certain point, you'll get a sheen of ice on it, right? And that sheen of ice is deuterium-rich water. So you throw that away, and now you've got deuterium-depleted water. And then you get another ice, and you throw that away. The trouble is, if you do that 20 times, you'll get it down to about 135, which isn't much. And you'll quit doing it after about 2 or 3 days because it's a pain in the ass. So, but that's how they do it commercially, except in big tanks, They freeze it, get rid of that water, and they get it down to about 20 parts per million. And that dilutes the water in you so that it becomes more like good, clean, hydrogen-rich water.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
I don't know the amount of money spent on researching this oncogene theory, and they got nothing. Nixon announced the war on cancer. We're going to spend whatever it takes, and in 10 years, cancer will not be an issue.